It's listen to people, it's learn from people, and it's love them as people.
How are you? Finally, we get to do this.
Finally, we get to talk and connect and bond and all those good things.
I know we had a previous meet and greet before for the audience who's watching for the first time, but I really wanted to know what made you say yes to the podcast.
Well, you interviewed other colleagues of mine, Matt Talbert being one of them. And
Yes.
so his piece with you was very interesting. And I know being new to Vayner, I know you wanted to do this a little bit earlier, but I thought it was really important for me to kind of come in and get my bearings in the organization before we did this. I feel I'm a little bit more equipped to talk a little bit about my journey here at Vayner, my overall career path and journey.
Right.
And hopefully some insights with your listeners and viewers that will be helpful for them.
That's amazing. I hope you have an incredible time today. Congratulations at joining Vayner. So how has your onboarding experience been?
It's been wonderful. I mean, as you can imagine, Vayner is one of the best human companies in the world. And
Yes.
so getting a chance to work with Gary Vaynerchuk and the team across VaynerX and our 8 branded companies has been a wonderful journey thus far.
That's amazing. And what does a day-to-day look like in the life of a chief diversity officer?
Busy. Pretty well. I think everyone in this type of role has a very busy day. And I mean, our jobs essentially are people and culture. And so it's how are we engaging our employees? What type of programs do we have in place for our employees? How are we fostering and creating, centers of belonging for them, allowing them to be able to come to work and be their authentic selves? And then also the culture, what does that look like when you bring different diverse communities together within an organization? And so it's a balancing act and trying to make everyone happy and everyone feel seen and heard. But I wouldn't trade it for the world at this point in my career. But I would surmise it as saying anyone in this role is busy every single day.
That's amazing. I really wanted to know what in your career made you decide that you wanted to follow the route and that diversity was a passion of yours when you went to pursue officially your diversity and inclusion program at Cornell.
Wow. Should I start at the beginning of how
Yes,
I got
please.
here? I think the road to Chief Diversity Officer probably be a good way to start. So I'm a Chicago native, born and raised, and I kind of fell into advertising. I actually started my career journey in association management for a few years before moving into advertising. And going to school, I didn't hear opportunities in advertising and marketing. It wasn't something on my radar. But I answered an ad when newspapers were important back then for an account coordinator, and it happened to be in an advertising agency. And so I went and tested, went and interviewed, got the job, and that was my foray into advertising. And I was in account management for a few years, but I always loved media. I loved how the directors would meet with people and talk with people and negotiate deals and find new ways of, reaching consumers with our, to advance our clients' products and services. And so
Right.
I moved in the media after a few years, after coming back from maternity leave, having my youngest son, and never looked back. And so I vacillated between general market agencies, multicultural agencies. Interesting point here, though, is my first agency job, I was the only Black person and a woman at this agency for 7 years.
Wow.
And they had a Hispanic gentleman. Now, mind you, let me preface this, I've been in the business this summer 30 years. So this was a long time ago. But at that time, I was the only Black employee within the company. And so it taught me a lot. It taught me how to navigate different conversations and be around different cultures and different type of people.
Right.
But that was a little bit of a nuance in my earlier part of my career. And so I went on to work at multicultural shops, Burrell being one of them, one of the longest and oldest multicultural shops. And so it, again, went from agency to agency. And I had an opportunity in 2010 to move to New York and work in a very unique role. And that was more about just strategic planning and investment, general market, multicultural.
Yeah.
It really was around people and culture and supplier diversity. And so I came to work for a company called Professional Partnering Solutions, and I was the Associate Director of Diversity Strategy and Operations. And so it blended my two it was like a convergence. It took all of my advertising, media, multicultural general market experience
Yeah.
and merged that with the people and culture aspect, which was primarily at that time centered around supplier diversity. And so I worked on AT&T's business for 4 years, and I just loved it. I loved, again, it was that attraction to the people and getting to help people. I've always lived my life through the lens of empathy and helping people and help provide opportunities for people. And so that was really the first job that I had that allowed me to uniquely work with publishers, diverse publishers, find ways in for them, work internally with our clients and our other stakeholders, and find ways to make sure we were finding fair and equitable ways to work with these partners. And so that was when I first fell in love with the aspect of DE&I and supplier diversity and people and culture at a completely different level than just working on media investment and being an account director and such.
I think that's amazing. I feel like it really like combines your ambition to, like really excel in the corporate world, but on a day-to-day basis, you're also creating like massive impact because it is very, very meaningful work. So I'm super happy for you and super inspired. I want to ask you, I saw that you're a member at Chief. So how did you decide to join, and how has your experience been being a member there?
Wow, I had followed Chief a little bit here and there on social media. And then when I took the role as Chief Diversity Officer at Vayner, I was like, you know what? It probably would be good, this being my first role in a C-suite, to connect with other women and other professionals who work in this space who can help me navigate this journey. As you can imagine, it's a completely different stress level, and you want to do great work, and you want to have a community of people that support you. And so I took the plunge, I applied, and I got in, and it's been wonderful thus far. I mean, my core group of women are amazing, one of which I actually used to work with when I was at Initiative. That is really amazing for both of us to come together in our core group and to continue to learn and grow from one another. But all of the engagement points with Chief, from Michelle Obama's talk a few weeks back to Ursula Burns, who is the first Black CEO, who was with Xerox. I mean, just the amazing women and their stories, and having access to, just a plethora of just strong women that all support each other has been amazing. So it has been one of the greatest opportunities that I've had thus far, from a membership association standpoint, but it's been great.
That's amazing. And how would you describe your journey being a woman and making it to the top of the corporate world and joining as a C-suite leader?
It's been a journey. I mean, it's definitely been a journey. As an African American woman, as I said, in this industry for 30 years, I've experienced a number of ups and downs, as you can imagine. And so I think, one thing about me is my tenacity and my focus. There's something I really strive to do, I continue to build towards it. And so I just navigate my way around the obstacles that are put in front of me. I've experienced unconscious bias. I've experienced conscious bias. I've experienced discrimination. One of the things that I think was unique about me is as I was advancing in my career journey, I actually had the strength and courage to come out as a lesbian woman. And so that was a big thing for me in my career journey. And so I think all of that has helped me get to where I am, that resilience, that strength, that passion for people. And I think, that has been extremely important to my journey. I stay down for a little while. I think I'm not the kind of person that wallows in sorrow very long. But when you've experienced the same fight over and over, to be seen, to be heard, to be human, you just kind of develop a thick skin. And also in that thick skin, and I also said earlier, I have a lot of empathy. So I really believe in people, and I believe that everyone has good nature in them. And so I try not to look at the negative in a situation. I try to look at that situation and what are the positive ways to move forward. And so all of that, I think, has been very, very helpful in my career journey thus far.
That's amazing. I would love to know, how did you build those very, very core ingredients of tenacity, focus, and overcoming adversity? So what would you say is your story as a person beyond like the corporate world?
Ooh, I would have to say it starts with my mother. I would have to say she was a counselor, social worker, teacher, and she instilled in me a lot of what I still carry today: the empathy, um, and ways of thinking about the world, and then just friendships that I've had over the years, and bosses I've had over the years. I know it kind of blurs the line of who's friends, but I've had some amazing women who have been an integral part of my journey, who've helped me align on where my passions are and what I want to do, and mentors throughout my journey. But my family, I would say my mother, growing up, a interesting story. I had a cousin who's no longer with us, but he was born with cerebral palsy. He never walked, he never talked, but he was literally the love of our family. He went everywhere with us. And he helped me understand compassion, again, that empathy, compassion for others. And I instill that in my boys. And so, it's just that lineage of, I don't see color, I see people. Although I do recognize I am an African-American woman. I know that there are white people. I know that there are Asian people and Indian people. I'm aware of that, but I see people. And I think there's that basic humanistic part of all of us that I see in people. And so my mother, I owe a lot to her for helping instill that in me. And then having my cousin in my family. I come from a very strong family of women, let me tell you. And they taught me to be very strong, but over time they helped me to also be nurturing and understanding in that softer side of me, but also how to carry myself as being professional. I owe to my very first boss, Dorothy Davenport, who was my boss in association management when I was with Smith Buckland and Associates years and years ago. Right. She was a phenomenal woman. She was the one who taught me how to dress, how to walk, how to enter a room, how to have confidence when I enter a room. Because I used to be shy in school, believe it or not. One of my friends to this day says, I remember Vanessa when she walked around school, books pressed against her chest, and she was shy. Now, but I was very introverted and shy at that point in my life. But I owe it's just an endless list of people that I owe it to along my journey to get me to where I am right now.
Right. One of the questions we ask everyone on the podcast is, are you happy?
I'm exceedingly happy. And I mean that through and through. I'm exceedingly happy on the personal front in my personal life. Yeah. I have an amazing family. I have an amazing partner. I'm exceedingly happy in my career. Having a boss like Gary Vaynerchuk, let me tell you, it's like none other. I've never, ever in all of my career had a CEO like him who leads his life, through the lens of empathy and pushes all of us to do the same within the organization. So I would surmise that I am exceedingly happy right now in my life.
I love to hear that. And, I recently connected with one of your mentees. Her name is Andriella Coleman. And she told me how amazing of a mentor you are. So it was just so lovely. So I'd love to get your perspective on, I know as a CISO leader, you must be super busy. So what made you decide to take back time and, give back to others? How did you fit that into your plan?
Oh my God, I love her. She is... I don't know if she told you the story. When I was at Hearts and Science, I was the senior director of cross-cultural strategy and head of D&I, and I had the opportunity to come to Vayner, and it was an amazing opportunity, and I could not pass it up.
Yeah.
I literally said, she can take this role on, hands down. She's ready. She's absolutely ready. And so I advocated for her to get that job, and she is just a phenomenal human. I love her. But it really is rooted in giving back. No one can ascend to this level without reaching back and pulling forward. So yeah. I am a big advocate of mentoring. She's one of them. We talk all the time. I mentored 2 young professionals at Vayner who are amazing young women. I actually mentor someone who's at the Sasha Group, which is one of our branded companies. Yes. Under VaynerX. I recently signed up with an organization called Sister Circle, a media. They have a program that's all about mentoring young women of color. And so I'm an executive sponsor for that. And it's a 6-month program. It's on Saturdays. So I am a big believer in giving back. To much is given. You have to reach back. And so I'm a big proponent of that. And then just one-offs. I schedule time with people in our organization. I schedule time with people on LinkedIn. I just posted today, if you want to schedule 15 minutes with me click on this link and schedule 15. And you would believe how many people I'm scared to look now. I got 5 minutes for this call. And so I'm sure there'll be many more, because without giving back, my job and what I do is meaningless. It's all about people.
Yeah.
And so I'm a big proponent of mentoring and giving back to the community.
Thank you so much for everything you do. I feel like it's so important for people like, who are just starting out on their journey to feel like people who they look up to are approachable and not just like intimidated by them, If they feel like they're approachable, they feel like, all right, like I can do it too. And I feel like building that human connect like helps a lot. So I remember speaking with her and she's like, just her eyes lit up. So that was like a testament to the kind of relationship you guys have. So, that's just amazing. I wanted to share with you.
She is just an amazing woman, and I support her 5,000% in her journey in any way that I can.
That's amazing. And to switch it up a little bit, what would you say is your favorite type of music?
Ooh, I love all kinds of music. I love R&B, I love rap, I love hip hop, I love little country. You will not believe who one of my favorite artists is. Yanni. Most of my friends will never go to a concert with me, but I am a huge Yanni fan. Huge Yanni fan. And my sons, because I listen to him, don't tell anybody, they like Yanni. I love all kinds of music. I'm a big music fan. And literally, I'll tell you a funny story. My partner probably killed me for telling you this. Like literally when we talk, or she'll say something, or I'll say something, I'm like, there's a song about that. And I always remember the song. But I do it anyway.
But what would you say are like your top 5 artists? Like gun to your head, top 5 artists.
Ooh, top 5. Ooh, Jay-Z is one of them. Yanni, as I mentioned, is one of them. Who doesn't love Beyonce? I love me some Bae. I love Barbara Streisand too as well. I love Barbara Streisand. Oh gosh, it's so many. That's a few of them.
That's amazing. I love hearing. I feel like just people's music taste really talks a lot about how they like to enjoy their time and things they like to do for fun. That gives our audience a lot of perspective on, like your vibe, which is super cool.
I love music. We can go on and on all day about all the different music and artists, but I guess those are a couple of ones that come up quite frequently on my playlist.
Right. So to go into a little bit of a serious topic, I wanted to ask you, please talk about the monumental shift in culture after George Floyd's murder.
I think it's a tough subject. I think we've talked about it a lot. It's a very painful time for a lot of people to watch a man be murdered on video at the hands of police. But I would say, at that time, in terms of movement, it was like the perfect storm. And what I mean by that is we had entered into COVID at that point. Communities of color were disproportionately impacted by COVID. And so you already had prior to that and post that, like a lot of different people of color who were unjustly taken from this world due to violence, police violence. And so I think George Floyd's murder just lit the embers. It lit the embers that were already there. And it ignited a movement that no one can turn away from. Anyone who's seen that video they're impacted forever. And so I think now, based on that, over the last couple of years, I know we're coming up on the 2nd year anniversary of his murder. I think it's time for us to really figure out how we turn that painful moment into purpose. And a lot of people are doing it. The Me Too movement, so many different movements at this time around how to turn that pain into purpose. And so I think we all have our own individual part in what that looks like. But yeah, I think George Floyd's murder was painful, culturally painful for a lot of people to see him taken from us the way that he was. But I think, we're resilient as people, all of us humans, we're resilient. And I think this just shined a light on the disjustice that's been going on and been pervasive in our country for a long time. But hopefully we can just move forward as a country and find ways to really connect with people. And in police brutality, it's something that we shouldn't have to live with, to be honest.
Definitely. How do you think an individual can have an impact in a positive manner when it comes to diversity? I feel like when people think of these big challenges that the world is facing, they feel like, oh my God, I'm so small and insignificant. How can me as like one person really have any impact? But I believe like on the contrary. So what would you say? Like how can an individual have that, global impact with their small actions?
Determine what you're passionate about. I think it starts with what you're passionate about. If you're not passionate about diversity, if you're not passionate about people, if you're not passionate about culture,
Yeah.
don't pretend that you are. You have to be passionate about it. And then I would say that to think about, where do you want to have impact? Is it helping with community organizations? Is it, you want to volunteer as a mentor in a high school where student with underserved students or an underserved community? Do you want to give back at a food pantry? Do you want to make donations? I think every person's journey and how they support and advocate at this time is different. If you're an ally, allyship is not words, it's action. I mean, people say, oh, I support, but then you never see how they support. It should be felt, it should be seen, it should be heard.
Right.
And so every person has to figure out what's best for them. Don't let someone else determine for you how you should show up. You figure out what's best for you, how you should show up, how much time you have, because that way you'll make a commitment. I often tell people we all have 24 hours in a day. The only difference is what you do with that 24 hours. Yeah. That's completely up to you. And so within those 24 hours, how do you show up? How do you serve your community and be an advocate and an ally for causes that you firmly believe in and people that you believe in? For me, mentoring is a big part of it. Yeah. I donate, Givesley is an organization that it's all centered around giving back to organizations. And so people can schedule time with me there, and every dollar that they donate to spend 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes with me, all go to an organization that I've determined is important to me. And so those are just some of the ways in that I do to give back. So every person should determine what works best for them.
Thank you for sharing them. I think those were some very, very practical action points, how one individual, like small actions can really have like lasting impacts. So
absolutely. And some people think, some people look at it as daunting, like I have to give so much time. It really can be small, whatever that small little thing is that you do. Donating $100 a year, you've done something.
Definitely.
It's, it doesn't have to be spending, 90, 100, 200 hours, a year to a cause. It's whatever you feel is in your bandwidth and from your heart. I mean, it has to come from here, what you're passionate about.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that's like one of the biggest and first ways to, change is like having that change of heart, is like looking beyond and being able to be a person who's able to transcend differences. And like you said initially, like irrespective of how different people are, irrespective of their nationality, color, or gender, I feel like everyone has the same problems, Everyone's like trying financial stability, having good relationships, health, fulfillment. Like really, like if we're able to see each other through that lens, I feel like we'll be able to come from a place of understanding and respect rather than having like boundaries and putting each other in like boxes.
How often people put themselves in boxes because they're one race or another race, because they're in this career path or that career path, because they live in this community or that community. Yeah. People are the reason there's so much separatism in this world. You're not born as a separatist. You're not born as a person who's racist. You're not born as a person who discriminates. Those are learned behaviors. And so if you change how you are, and I posted this, I don't know if you saw it, I posted it on LinkedIn for International Women's Day about bias. I said something along the lines of, we all are biased, every one of us. The win is identifying what your triggers are and pivoting to more positive ways of working. That's the win. It's not easy, but it's possible. And so that's, again, a personal thing that you have to take on for yourself so that when you show up, you're showing up better, not only for you. I said this in something we did at work. Part of my role is helping people understand DE&I and diversity and how we're better partners, not only for ourselves, but for our clients. Like we show up better when we understand the importance of diversity and inclusion And same thing with bias. Once we understand it and we're not afraid of it and we're decoding the bias, we show up differently. And
Yeah.
so, but it with an intention. Absolutely.
I was just reading recently, what does like true unity mean? And it said that unity does not mean constantly agreeing with one another, but unity means respecting each other's differences. And I felt like just that one line made like a lot of sense to me, like so many times we have difference of opinions with people, but when it comes from that place, you're able to have a lot of respect and, like find like a, harmonious conclusion.
It's being respectful of the difference. I mean, in any relationship, in any work relationship, personal relationship,
Yeah.
family relationship, you're never going to agree 100%, but you have to do it in a respectful way. Once you cross the line of respect into disrespect, that's where everything
Conflict
changes.
happens.
It just work. It's a conscious choice to understand that there's going to be different opinions about things, and you have to accept that no one's like you. Everyone's different. So
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having a conversation on that. I think it's a very, very important topic, and dialogue is really where it begins. I wanted to ask you, what would you say is your dream or ambition?
ooh, my dream and ambition. I think I'm there. I'm living it now. I found my superpower in this work. I think my dream, my future dream, is to be a transformational coach when I'm kind of like a little bit more towards retirement years.
Yeah.
I want to continue in some way to help people really look inside themselves and figure out who they are and how they manifest that in their life.
Yeah.
That's what I dream to do. I don't know that our world is 100%. I would love for our world to be 100% erased from bias and discrimination and racism. I don't know that that's going to happen in my lifetime. I'm just realistic with myself.
Yeah.
But if I've done anything, if I've had one small part in advancing that change, then I'm happy. And my dream would be to continue that later in life as like a transformation coach to help people continue along that positive journey of change.
That's amazing. So, to the young people who are really like in their early 20s and stuff and try to figure out, what their passion is, what is it that they should do with life and stuff, what would your advice be if you were a transformational coach right now?
I talk to a lot of our young adults, employees, and talent at Vayner, and you know what? I have to tell you, they give me life. I tell them that all the time, like just them and hear their journeys and how they arrived at Vayner and what their passions are. It literally feeds my soul. And so some of the advice that I do give to them is a big part of it is career pathing. I think a lot of companies aren't doing that enough with employees. And that's one of the things at Vayner we're pushing more on is like when we bring someone in, it's easy to bring someone in. It's what's their experience going to be once they get there. Mm-hmm. And so how do we as an organization and as leaders help our talent figure out their career journey with our company and if they leave and go off someplace else, we want to make sure that we're preparing them to do that, and their experience has been positive. But I would say a lot of what I tell them is career pathing, relationship building. So you want to know your boss's boss, your boss's peers, your peers, and then your key partners. Like that's important. You need to build a community and a network through relationship building, because I'll tell you, I'm still connected to someone who worked for me 15 plus years ago. One of my former bosses, Deborah Gray Young, love that woman. If anyone who's watching this knows her, they know she's phenomenal. I'm still connected with her. She's such a phenomenal woman. And these are people I worked with years ago. And they still bring unique value to my life, and we support one another. And so I think relationships and relationship building is very, very key for our young adults. And having a mentor is also extremely important. I mentioned earlier, Dorothy Davenport, Deborah Gray Young. I've worked for some amazing, women leaders, but mentorship is a big key part of that. So I would tell them if they don't have one, find one. I can't mentor everyone. I wish I could. I wish I could just grab them all, but I can't. But I encourage them to find someone that they can connect with, that can mentor them, because that's really important. And it doesn't have to be necessarily someone in our industry. One of my mentors is not in this industry. I literally met him at a conference. His name is Christopher Chi. I met him at a conference at NMSDC, National Minority Supplier Development Council conference. And I was so blown away by him. I asked him, would you be my mentor? I need a mentor who's not in this space, but also uniquely understands supplier diversity, people culture, because he's the CEO of his own company. And he agreed. He's been mentoring me, not as much now, but back then, oh my God, he was the one who I entrusted to check me. Now, I'm human, right? I'm human. I'm not perfect. He would be the one who would come to me and say, okay, Vanessa, are you done? Are you done? Okay. I want to whine about something. He says, are you done? Okay. All right. Let's figure out the plan. And so he'd let me have my 5 minutes. He'd reel me out, and then he'd reel me back in. Yeah. And we talk about what's your value proposition? What's your personal value prop? How do you navigate through this situation? Mentors, and it can be something hardcore as a scheduled program, or it can be someone who's just there to mentor you, to help guide you through situations. So mentorship, I would say, is also another key thing that I would tell people. So it's the relationship building, it's career pathing, and it's mentorship. One additional thing I do tell people, and I like to try to do this as well, is help people find their voice, through the work internally, through external opportunities. That's another big piece of it, is helping you find your voice.
What would you say exactly means by helping you find your voice? Like finding your narrative, or finding like your inbuilt confidence?
Yeah, your inbuilt confidence. Like some of the things I'm working through with someone I'm mentoring is, a little introverted. How do we help you find your voice? Build your confidence. So that's what I mean by finding your voice.
That's amazing. And for someone who is ready to, seek a mentor, I feel like one would know, but they're like, okay, what do I really get mentored on? I feel like with now work and everything, like so much being like online, even if, a young person does reach out to someone they look up to, how is it, do you think, that they should approach them so that they can have like the maximum value exchange for the both of them?
I think it's identifying someone you think you can connect with, either at work or within your friend circle or network. And then I would just ask them, do a little research. Don't go cold. Don't go in cold. I would do a little research, find out a little bit more about that individual. If you connect on any level with this person, their journey. And then I would say, just have a conversation with them, shoot them a note, ask if you can have coffee, and talk about it. And see if there's a connection. And then I think you two together can figure out what that mentorship journey looks like for the both of you.
Right.
But don't be afraid to ask. I mean, the only thing they can say is, I don't have time, or I don't think it's a good fit, but continue until you find someone. Don't give up. There's someone out there who's uniquely fit to mentor you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you don't ask, it's always a no. So one should always ask. And I had to ask you like a really like technical and weird question. Let me know how that fits. It's for like, when there's so many people, internationally who want to work in the States, who might, work at Vayner Media and stuff. But, there are also government regulations, that are visa regulations and so on and so forth. So when diversity comes into play and, we say like, how we're also similar and stuff, how does one get over those like, very, very technical, regulations and boundaries if they want to join the family?
I think I'm not the best person to talk to about this. It would be definitely our EVP of our people and experience team. Yeah. But I think if you have ambitions to work in the United States, I think it's just, finding a company that you feel you really want to work for, contacting them, trying to secure a position, and talk to them about what your needs are. If you need a visa. And again, for us, we're a global organization. So if you can't come to the US and want to work in another, and have the ability to work in one of our offices in a different country, and it's a little bit easier and turnkey for you, we certainly have those options available for people who don't live in the United States and North America. So I would just encourage, reach out to the company, explore opportunities, and find ways of working. If it's easy to come to the United States, or if it's easier for you and the company to work in another country that they operate in. But I think that's one way in. And once you're into the company, if that works out, if you're in another country and there's an opportunity to come in, it makes it a little bit easier in Turkey because you're already an employee within the organization, and so it may be a little bit easier. But yeah, that would be what advice I would give someone who's looking to come to the United States.
Right. And wouldn't you think like if an employer would have to pick, two candidates, one would be a person who's already in the States versus one of the persons is someone, who might need a sponsorship and stuff. So, that person who can easily be cut off because that is a little bit of a burden. You have to do like so much paperwork and so much friction is involved to get into that place. So what would you say is your perspective on that?
I would first say it has to be the right candidate. I don't think it matters one way or the other. I think it's the person, their, what they bring to the organization, the cultural fit that within the organization.
Right.
I think if you have candidates who are equally suited, it's just a matter of which one you feel is going to fit best within your organization and bring the best value to your organization or business. So I don't think where you live really plays the major role in that decision.
Right. Thank you for answering that. And I wanted to ask you, you recently posted on LinkedIn about, find your why. So what would you say is your why?
My why, having worked at jobs where I wasn't respected or seen or heard, and was frankly flat out discriminated against, my why is I would never, ever work. Why work for a company that doesn't respect you or see you? And so now working at Vayner, I could never work for a company that doesn't bring me what they bring me in my experience. As I mentioned, working for Gary, Claude Silver, bless her, who's our chief heart officer. Claude, I mean, she's phenomenal. I mean, working with her, Gary and her and I have the triangle of love. I have many triangles of love throughout the organization. But I work with an amazing, amazing group of individuals. And as I said, I feel in every single employee globally within our organization. I would say relationship-wise, I mean, the why, I have been in bad relationships. I'm sure most people who are watching this have been in bad relationships. Yeah. So, you discover why stay in a relationship or a friendship, as I posted, when they aren't feeding into you, they're not sowing into you. And so, finding the why and why stay in that? Why not be happy and fulfilled and whole in your relationships, whether it's a personal relationship or a friendship? Yeah. And so I encourage everyone to find their why in your journey, if it's your career, if it's personal, whatever your why is, and find ways to navigate to positive places and positive energy. I think oftentimes people live in fear. I mean, we do, we're human. A lot of people live in fear, and fear is just false expectations or evidence, some people use it interchangeably, appearing real. And so once you move away from that, and you move away from things that are draining you, you find, and even in my journey, as I said earlier, coming out as a gay woman, I didn't come out too much later in life. I was a mother of 2 kids, and so even freeing my why am I being so scared? Because when I knew it was like the movement for the LGBTQIA plus community is so far advanced now from when I first knew something was different about me. And even coming into my truth was so refreshing. And so my friends were like, you just look younger and happier. I'm like, yeah, because I'm not. I say this all the time, and I said this last year, and I don't know where it came. It was the first time I ever said it. I no longer live in the shadows of who I am. And that is so freeing. So when you figure out your why in your life, in your journey, free. It's so freeing. So I encourage people to do that self-analysis of the why in your life, whatever that why is.
That's amazing. I feel like I'm so inspired by what you said about, not anymore living in your shadows. And you really do feel like it reflects in your outer surface area, that you're happier and you're younger. What would you say was that moment that clicked with you, that I am so comfortable with who I am, I can confidently claim who I am in terms of, every small aspect about us? Like, what was that moment for you?
I think it was before I moved to New York. It was before I moved to New York. I was traveling to Florida, and it was my birthday, and I just I had a moment. I was by myself, and it just clicked for me. I was seeing everyone around me, and I was in South Beach, and that's very openly, people are who they are in the South Beach in Miami. And so I just had a moment of attrition with myself. And I said, I'm going to continue to live this life this way, or do you want to be free and live your life this way? And so for me, it was more about my children. I was a mother, as I said. I had two boys, who were young in high school, and that was my first and major concern, is like, to be who I want to be and start to go on the path I want to go on in my future, in my life. I need to be authentic to myself. And so it was probably a year of like real soul searching and really thinking about what I want in my future, where I want to go with my family, where I want to go with my career. Am I going to lose friends?
Yeah.
And when I finally made the decision to be authentic to myself, it was so freeing. And I didn't lose a single friend. My boys still love me, beyond love me. My family, nothing changed. And so again, that was the fear.
Yeah.
I was living in the fear of being myself. And so once that was lifted, it was just so freeing. And so I can be who I am, and showing up, in my journey the way that I want to show up. And no one gets to define that for me. I define it for myself.
That's amazing. I'm so, so, so happy for you. And next question I wanted to ask is there anything that you would like to ask me?
Ooh, you're in the hot seat. I would love to hear more about your career journey. How did you end up where you are now?
I had a really bad experience at school. I was really bullied in school and stuff. And I think that is when I lost a lot of my faith in the formal education system. And being in India, and especially in Asia, like, school is everything. If you're not good at school, you're good at nothing. And I think that was the time I was also I started consuming Gary a lot. And I started understanding about mindset and self-awareness. And he said, what is the biggest ROI of going to a college? Building relationships and building a network. And that's why I decided, I was like, all right, I'm going to start a podcast and start building relationships and start networking with people. I had no idea what I was doing at that time. I just started like connecting with people, and I thought like initially we were connecting with young people who were also lost, and having that conversation, just documenting the journey. Did not build a lot of pressure on creating something, just started documenting, and it took its own identity. That's how I started the podcast, and now I'm here. And through the podcast, I built amazing connections. I currently am now working as a freelancer with a Web3 company, which is based out of New York. And my boss turned out to be one of a guest on my podcast. She worked at GMG for like 8 years. And she was just in a place where she was starting her own company, and she wanted women to represent and leverage the Web3 space, because tech in general is such a male-dominated space. And we connected immediately because I just bought my first NFT at that time. So I ended up working with her. Even though we're working as freelancers, I actually also got into the first round at Vienna as a creator, but I couldn't make it through. So that's why I connected with Matt, and I was really trying to educate myself, on how it goes. Because like I consumed Gary so much, I learned the power of social media, creating content and stuff. But my main forte is like not content. It's not in being an editor. It's something I can do. It's something I've leveraged as much as I can, to try and find work in the real world. But I'm still like figuring out what is it something that I'm passionate about? What is it something that would bleed from my eyes for? And obviously Veda Media was a company which is like still a dream company, because I've admired Gary so much. And every small thing I'd hear, I would not just consume his content, but I would like be making notes and try and execute it and have a pencil and pen and paper and, like highlight stuff and whatnot. So I give a lot of like, I'm so grateful for him, even though he's such a, amazing and successful business person. He does not have to create content. He does not have to give his best advice, but he does. And that has helped people like us, really, really like, I felt like he held my hand for me to figure out, how to go about life. So that was kind of a journey. And now I just moved to a new city, which is Bombay in India. And I'm like trying to figure out my work situations here, connecting with people, networking, and keeping the podcast going alive. So that's kind of like the story.
Wow, what a great story. I mean, Gary is so great at that. I mean, his superpower is he's very real. He'll tell you like it is, but he's a great predictor of trend.
Yeah,
I remember the time I actually saw Gary was during advertising week. This was years ago, and people were upset with what he was saying about social media and ad agency industry as a whole. And I remember that, but everything he's predicted has come true. And he's
Definitely.
a great advisor. And having him as a boss, I mean, hands down, one of the best decisions I ever made was coming to Vayner. So I have another question for you. You asked me, like, down the road in my path in my career journey, where do I see myself at the end goal? What would be your end goal?
I think I really wanted to leave a blueprint for the youth on how it's done. I didn't want to just tell parents, like, oh, like formal education is not that important. They're like, all right, what is the alternative? I think I really wanted to leave that alternative. And that is why I started documenting my journey through YouTube. If an amazing, like Dana, who's my boss right now, how she was a client, I have that conversation documented. Someone can really, really track back and see how did that conversation go? How did I prepare for it? How did, that leading, how did it lead to the final destination? And I think I'm very, very passionate about the sustainable development goals, and I've been always very passionate about starting a business and making money. And one of the best reasons to start a business is to solve a problem. And I feel like, we already have 17 problems in the world, and I feel like 70% of those problems stem from Asia. And I feel like the solution also should emerge from here. And India has the largest population of youth. I feel like what the youth end up doing, what they're thinking today, is not just going to shape the country but the world. And I feel like that is why I was so passionate about showing what education, what is capable without formal education, and showing the youth that, you can't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. We have so much more to offer than if one is not performing well at school. So I think my genuine end goal was to make a lot of money and leave an impact. And how I wanted to do that was starting a business in the sustainable development sector. So I think kind of that.
I think you said something so profound, and it takes me back to results are a direct product of, like, our actions. Like, if you have to be intentional in your actions, and the outcomes are a direct product of that. It kind of goes back to what I said. We all have 24 hours in a day. It's like, what do you do with that time? Yeah. What are your passions? What do you really want to do? Because I think if you're working in an industry or have a job that you're not passionate about, it's like, you want to work and Gary said this before, you want to work somewhere where it's like, it doesn't feel like work.
Definitely.
Like, every day that I get up, it doesn't feel like I get excited to get up and to work.
Yeah.
Be there for people. And so, I think that's a really interesting thing. What are your thoughts on since I'm still asking the question?
Please.
What's your position on diversity? How do you feel diversity should show up in the world and in the workplace?
I actually started practicing Buddhism when I was like, I think 16 or 17 years old. That was the time when I really started studying how Soka Gakkai International is an organization which is Buddhist movement, and how they started in Japan, during World War II, and how this one person started this movement rooted in peace, culture, and education, and how this one person, now this philosophy is practiced in 192 countries. And the reason this one Japanese person who barely could speak English was able to connect so many people to, one philosophy, which was rooted in the belief of, respect for the dignity of life. That is what Nichiren Daishin's Buddhism was based on. And I think that made a lot of sense to me. I was able to really, through practicing Buddhism, able to transcend differences between age, gender, and nationality. I feel like that change of heart, that change of perspective. And Nichiren Daishin Buddhism also believes that, a single change, it said a great human revolution, one person can bring a great effect change in the entire society. And how it defines human revolution is, we've had all sorts of revolutions, like the French Revolution, the plastic revolution, art revolution. But he said the people are the basis of everything that happens in life. So why not go for a human revolution, which basically meant, that little inner change for the better. So instead of you getting angry 10 times a day, you start getting angry 7 times a day. So that even 3 little efforts you've made, that is human revolution. And it said that when people start changing their inner realities, the outer reality starts changing. So I feel like even though diversity is such a big topic, it seems something that's larger than life. I feel like if people really start loving themselves and they start understanding how we don't exist in isolation, how life is so interconnected, why you should care about the person, like why you should care about your colleague being happy, why you should care about your neighbor being happy. And I feel like COVID was a great example of it. If your neighbor had COVID, you were freaking out. So you wanted everyone around you to be safe so that you could be safe. I feel like happiness also works like that. So I think like that is my perspective on diversity.
Oh,
That made sense.
totally makes sense. We are all so more interconnected than we actually give ourselves credit. I mean, people create separatism.
Yeah.
We're also more interconnected, just like you said. Oh, great. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's very, very scientific. It said, like, imagine even if, like, you're, like, it said that, the universe, like Gary says, like, your chances of being a human being are like 400 trillion to one, right? So it's not a coincidence that you're just, like, alive. The universe really aids in your birth, aids in your protection, in your creation. And I thought of it like, like if your mom ate an apple when you were pregnant, like someone grew that apple, someone transported it, you bought it, like your mom ate it, the nurse helped her. That's how you were born. Like, you just don't exist in isolation. That is why things like gratitude and giving back scientifically really works, that because that's just almost like the rhythm of universe. So I feel like diversity is not like a choice or some fancy thing that we're trying to do. It's like very, very rooted in like human existence. And if we don't follow it, like good things are not gonna happen. So I feel like it's super like important.
Great. Diversity is rooted in human existence. That is very profound and so true. And I think, we all want to be the change. We all need to be a part of the change, that we want to see in this world. So
Yeah.
good stuff. Appreciate it.
Of course. On the last note, is there anything that you would like to talk about? Any specific topic you would like to touch upon?
Wow. So many things in so little time. I would say a couple of things. One piece of advice that I would give people who are listening or watching this is, the 3 L's. It's listen to people, it's learn from people, and it's love them as people. Directly to what you were saying about diversity, we're all human, we're all people. We all need to listen, learn, and love one another. And once that starts to happen, we'll start to see real change. Real change. Don't see the color because I am Black or you are Indian or someone is Asian or someone is white. We all know the history. What we need to think about, and I hope and pray everyone thinks about, is how do we move forward in a positive direction to impact change and not keep looking at color. There's so many people who focus on that instead of focusing on the positive. We just shifted a portion of that to just loving people, hearing people, looking at people as human beings. I think with our world, our country, our globe would be so different.
I definitely agree to that. And a very last selfish question is, would you have any like specific advice for me, like in my career trajectory?
I think I would give you some of the same advice I give anyone I mentor, that I said earlier, like have a mentor if you don't have a mentor, career path, and what your passions are. I mean, it seems like you pretty much know what your passions are and what you want to do, but I would just say, and be true to what you want. And that in career pathing, I always tell people all the time, you may lay out your plan, you want to revisit it every day. One of the things that I do is every day on my notes, I write something that represents that day for me. So every day, if it could be something simple, it could be one sentence, it could just be shine today,
Yeah.
Think about to you and what motivates you.
Yeah.
Something that I mentor and tell people about all the time. And again, I would just say, relationship building. You never ever know where that relationship will take you. It may not be something that's fruitful today, but 5 years from now, it might be fruitful. I used to always tell when I worked on the media side, and I would tell reps all the time, I don't see an opportunity to work with you today, but keep me informed of what's going on so that when a moment occurs, I will automatically think of you. And I think that's what effective real effective relationship building does.
Yeah.
It helps you think of people in those off moments where you're talking to someone about something, or you can recommend that person for something. And so I think
Yeah.
relationship building is a very big part of it. And just continue to shine in your truth, be who you are.
Yeah.
You know, don't compromise yourself for anyone. I think too often, and I've been a victim of it as well. When we talked about the why have I done this, why but I've done it too, you know. But be true to yourself. It took me a long time. I was kind of on autopilot. You know, I was just doing what society says I should do, or be who society says I should be. But if you could just continue to think about what's important to you, and be true to yourself, because I think out of that comes all the positive stuff in your career journey. You'll make better decisions about where you want to go. You'll get yourself out of situations quicker because you're in tune with it doesn't really fit for me. That's not really what I was hoping to get out of. And so when you're tuned into yourself and what you contribute to the world, I think that's some of the great advice I can give you above and beyond some of the other more standard kind of ways of working.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. And on the last note, I just wanted to ask you, would you have any feedback for the podcast? Any way that we could have improved or done better?
Ooh, I think this is great. I think you're doing a great job. I mean, continue to have any type of dialogue with people, you know, hopefully something that your guests that you bring on, something we say, or, you know, help someone else. Like I always tell people, if I can help one person, I've done my job. One person.
Yeah.
And I feel fulfilled. So I would say continue to do what you're doing. If you can do it more, do it more. I think in this time of, you know, where we're starting to return to office and it's hybrid, I think people are still looking for ways of connecting, you know, at home before they go back into the office, or, you know, most models are going to be hybrid. So they're looking for ways to continue to connect with people. And if your platform is a way to help them stay connected and learn, and they can, you know, from people like myself or others that you have on, like Matt Tolver, who's a phenomenal person we have at Vayner. I think that's what I would recommend you do. This has been great. I really appreciate you having me on and hearing a little bit about my journey, and hopefully something I said will impact someone's life.
It definitely will. Thank you, Vanessa, so much for doing this. You're literally so incredible. Like, you radiate like warmth and love. And thank you for being so respectful and open and honest, sharing your journey like with the full heart and getting to know me. It's a pleasure, to say the least. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and let's make sure we stay in touch.
Definitely. Please let me know if any way I can add value, and promise you one day I'm going to see you in New York super soon.
I look forward to it. The dinner's on me.
Okay, done. This is recorded, so it's done. Thank you, Vanessa. Have an incredible day, and thank you with my whole life for being you. Bye.